Well, welcome into this very special edition of the Patriot Barcasting Project. I am your host, Bubba Startz. With me today is Aaron Prince and Tyler Calkins-Stoeser. They are part of a ongoing federal trial that is very important to not just them and the Calkins family, but to all of us out here who have rights. Boys, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks, Bubba.
Well,
Morning.
yeah, the last time we talked, it was not that long ago, and since then, a lot has happened. We're going to talk about a lot of that maybe later as we lead into it, but I don't think the last time we had spoken that we really got into the work that your mother was doing before her passing, and untimely passing at that. So I want to kind of allow you um, to kind of backtrack a little bit and you know, kind of after your grandfather's death, your mother was pursuing this exact same path that you are pursuing against some of these players involved. So kind of pick it up, I guess, from there and what your mom was doing, and then obviously we'll get into her untimely passing as well.
Yeah, she was the rock of the family on that, calling attorneys and attorneys and attorneys and trying to find somebody and just nobody would pick up, nobody would respond. And it just seemed off that all them different attorneys through the state and getting in contact with the state bar association to help you find an attorney and no answers back. She finally did get an attorney out of Philip, and that attorney, she found altering of the will. That's kind of a big deal. And after that first court hearing, her attorney got pulled out to the side by the other attorney acting in my grandfather's behalf. And I say acting because I don't even believe he had any power to do so. All of a sudden she quit fighting. It's like, what do you mean? You found something that significant and you just quit fighting? And then later she ends up becoming the state's attorney. It's like, this doesn't seem right at all, She ended up going down kind of the same path that we ended up going down. She was looking into bonding the case, and when she passed, she still had a pending lawsuit. The state of South Dakota is supposed to notify not only the heirs of that because she was the plaintiff in the deal. She repositioned herself as the plaintiff. And that makes it to where the family members can pick up where she left off. Well, not only did the state not recognize that and tell us, but her own attorney didn't even bother looking in. She had another attorney after that one because that attorney quit fighting for her, so she let her go. And calling after attorney after attorney after attorney, and then having to represent herself there for just a minute because she couldn't get nobody. She attempted, but we got the transcripts, and you could see where the judge was steering the trial, it wasn't even a trial; it was a hearing.
A hearing, yeah.
The evidence was brought up. The judges and stuff, they're supposed to have a due diligence. If they hear something being wrong, they're supposed to look into that, not just let it get swept underneath the rug. So the judges failed us, the attorneys failed us. Mom tried to reach out to the governor. She silent, fell on deaf ears, and
Don't know what was her comment.
she said my mom went in there and tried to bring this up, and well, what do you want me to do? Fight your battles for you, Barb? And it's like, well, right there, we knew that there was something off with her. Figured that she come from a ranch family and she'd be probably your strongest advocate, and she wasn't. And then getting a hold of the state's attorney general, and he didn't do his job either. That's their job. They're supposed to pick up and make sure people don't get taken advantage of. And my mom, she tried her damnedest to try to fight for us. And
well, and you just hit on something there that I think I've never, because I've always been on the wrong side of the law, and followers of mine will obviously
So
know
you
that.
think. So you
Right.
think.
Well, right. Well, at least in their eyes, right? that I never thought of these public officials as representing me. The state's attorney is representing the citizens of South Dakota, or at least they should be,
They're
right? They
supposed
are
to.
representing the
Absolutely.
people. And for them to kind of turn a blind eye towards all of this speaks to a much deeper corruption and corrosive nature of the politics of our laws, of our lawmakers, and the control that's been given to these people and that has been wrested away from the citizens of this country, and most of all you and your family right now.
Yeah, everything around mom just screams foul play. They said she went off the road sideways for 250 yards, but the tire tracks, there's four sets of tracks. If she was going sideways, that was a front wheel drive car because she was in the process of retrieving her other pickup. It would have been constantly pulling back to the gravel road, not going forward. There's four spots or maybe five where the oil pan dug in. And then the main impact, it's perfect shaped like the front end of a Ford Taurus. And then there's some grass standing in the center and then another impact. I'm no expert, but if a car hit sideways, there wouldn't be grass standing up in between two main impacts. And there was a bunch of legal documents in the trunk of that car because we were just at her attorney's office the day before. I know because I put the damn documents in there. Right off the bat, I was kind of shell shocked because those documents, were in there and seeing the car on the tow truck. And there's cars, all sorts of vehicles parked up and down the gravel road where, tire tracks were kind of disrupted. I consider it a damn crime scene.
At the very
Well,
least, it's the scene of an accident. I mean, shouldn't we be, protecting these? I mean, we protect those on the interstates for at least an investigation to take place.
We have to do a FOIA request on that specific event to go through the catalog, the images, and everything else that hasn't been done. But I'm sure there's violations of due process and inappropriate standard operating procedures that they've failed to do, and that will actually highlight the aspect of what's been going on.
so
Well, and that's really what and not to cut you off, Tyler, but that's really what has been most noticeable for me is that the standard operating procedures of how they would handle any other case in the history of the law, right? It's just been completely pushed to the side and they're just operating under their own set of rules. And that's not the way that the system is supposed to work. And it can't help, you can't help but question everything because the case that's open against these counties and against these people in charge, opened by your mother, and then she, dies under suspicious circumstances at the very least.
yeah, so there's legal documents in the trunk of that car. I know because I put them in there. There's a lot of them, I didn't take them out. They were still in there. But after the shell shock kind of wore off, I remembered what we were going through, and it's like, oh shit, I made kind of a big deal. I said, I need those legal documents. I need them legal documents. They're potentially worth millions. Making it seem like they're the only ones, but Mama was already concerned and suspicious about what was going on. Her military background prepared her for something like that, And they said, oh, you can't have nothing out of the car. You can't have nothing out of the car. And they turned around, but they gave me her purse. It's like, wait, I thought I couldn't have anything out of the car, And I knew those documents are in the trunk. And then later down the road, they said that they weren't in there. Highway patrol officers called me and wanted to do kind of a follow-up. They're like, well, do you think your mother might have been sleepy or maybe drinking? I'm like, fuck, my mom didn't really drink at all, special occasion here or there, but she wasn't no drinker, and sleepy. I was like, well, didn't you get the final voicemail that I got from my mom? I said, did that sound like a sleepy woman to you? She was on her way to go get a protection restraining order in Hocking County, which that's not protocol either. You know, the sheriff put her on the road that day. Normally, from my understanding, is that you would get it to the victim, you mail it, or you hand deliver it to them. You don't put them on the road to come get it, you know? So that's concerning. And then later when I got that death certificate, I had to use that for uh, banks and life insurance policies and whatnot, you know. Uh, then I got a call I had to call the coroner because I needed a toxicology report. Well, I said that to the highway patrol officer before, I guess, getting to the next person. Yeah, well, once I said, well, wouldn't you know if you did your job and did the toxicology report? You know, if she was sleepy or drinking, and he didn't want to talk to me much more after that. Well, then calling these life insurance policies, they needed that, you know, to start doing anything. So I had to call and try to figure out where the heck to even get one because I didn't know. Well, I got a hold of the coroner, and the first thing the coroner says to me is, well, how did you get that death certificate? I never signed off on that. I said, well, what do you mean? I got it from the funeral home. Well, I never signed that. And I said, well, so you're telling me that I've been going around calling these places and getting a hold of all these people and you don't even have the proper documentations? Like, well, where'd this come from? And he said, well, you just come see me and we'll see if we can't get that taken care of. I said, well, that's kind of odd if you ask me. And that was about 5 months down the road when that took place. Sorry, I had to plug the computer in. But yeah,
the
that
saga
shit was suspicious.
It's just the
And then
fact
I hear that coroner no longer is working. Like, same thing with that sheriff that put her on the road in Hawking County. That deputy, he just became sheriff, and I heard that there was some suspicious stuff with the sheriff before that. And then he becomes sheriff, and then shortly after Mom's death, he's gone. I don't know where the heck he went, but he stepped down. Now there's another new sheriff. It's like one thing after another, after another, after another. It's like, well, there's got to be something going on.
There's something that, you know, I've heard through it, and it's probably from Steve Bannon, but there are no coincidences, right? And to have this many stacked up, you can't help but ask questions. And any sane and logical person, and I kind of alluded to it off camera, that, you know, when I had first heard about your mom's passing, that was kind of my first introduction to what was going on. And obviously you're emotional after that, and a lot of people are going to take what you have to say with a grain of salt at that point, right? But all you've done since then, and I know we just passed the 1 year anniversary, correct? You know, and my heart goes out to you, Tyler, as a friend, right? I feel I can't even imagine, and to lose her under such questionable circumstances. You have no closure. You have no closure. You've been lied to repeatedly. You've been given the runaround, and it didn't end with your mother's death. It really just began because you have now picked up the torch that she lit after the passing of her father. Now you are the third generation now fighting for the rights to exist on your family's land. And I think that gets lost in this, especially when people start to only think of ranches as money, right? When we start to think of property as only a business, as only it is legacy. It is everything. We know what it meant to your grandfather from our last episode. Yes, sir. We know what it means to your family and what that meant. And unfortunately, as a society, I think this speaks to the issue, is that we have lost that as Americans, right? We have lost that the ability really to even leave a legacy between the theft of property taxes and all the taxation till death and beyond.
You shouldn't be getting taxed in death. Your loved ones shouldn't be getting punished for losing someone.
And I don't want to get down a rabbit hole on that. We can save that for another episode. But I want to kind of flash forward, having just passed the year anniversary of your mother's suspicious death, and
Holy shit.
now again the legal troubles for you have continued. Right? They have taken this well beyond a civil matter. They are using every avenue available to them to try to get to you, to silence you, even as far as to trying to serve a warrant again while you're having documents notarized, right? I mean, obviously they have eyes on you, no doubt, and they have eyes on you for good reason. And I don't know how much, Aaron, that you guys can talk about the, the paperwork that you were filing and are filing currently, but it really extends the scope of this case beyond a small county in South Dakota now and to a much larger platform. So can you kind of update us on the progress of that?
Well, it's coming along, but the problem that we're having is exposure. Okay, you've got Pacemaker, you've got eCourts. They're all private corporations, so no one is able to actually freely see this on the public record. So everybody needs to actually start going on. We've been posting our case on Scribe and other different avenues, so the general public can see these documents, because you have to be an attorney to license because it's private, and then they have to charge them for the downloads of these documents. So they're operating in a private capacity, under commercial capacity. They have no immunity, but they're been blinded because whether they went to a liberal law school or whatever, they don't know the context and how they're operating. That's all been lost. So we freely share our documentation openly if anybody wants to ask, because that information is not being made available through the court system, because
Not convenient anyway, that it says
Right,
public
right,
record.
right.
You
They
should be
can't.
able to Google search it and then
Right,
boom, there it is. Not have to
right.
pay a hidden fee or go to a hidden server, Stanley County. You type it in to look up your court case and you can't even find it on the South Dakota deal. You got to go to a specific deal just for that county. And it's like, well, that's not public. And then you got to have a password and make an email. It's like, well, that doesn't seem like very public records.
Right. And they do the layers, right? Layers upon layers of things to just wear you out, right? That they may be operating in some legal capacity to do that, but the mission of that is the same. It is to keep you from getting to the information. Now, we can't just lock it behind a closed door, but we can put it behind paywall after paywall after paywall after paywall, and charging you, $1 per page for a 10,000 page, case
I think
like
they cap
this.
out on $30, but still, you shouldn't be profiting off that.
Well, and you shouldn't have to pay for public documents. I can understand the paying for printing of them, right? A physical thing, but to see digital copies of something is our tax dollars are paying for those servers that these documents are housed on. And this is coming to the larger issue. And Aaron, I know this is where, you really start to dig in, is there is no transparency in our government anymore. We cannot see what is going on. They have hidden everything. We have a shadow government that is running inside of our government that is stealing and is abusing our rights. They are taking away the legacy of good standing Americans. And this is the greater mission outside of the Calkins family. This is the greatest mission.
well, what they do is they take your private property, they bring it into the public, and then they administrate it into the private. Basically, if you want to really summarize it. So you're being administrated or a magistrate through a foreign entity that represents foreign interests. Whether people want to believe it or not, it's absolutely fact. There's no ifs, buts about it. And people need to understand that these people don't have their best interests.
Well, they only have their own interests at heart.
Exactly.
And it's evidenced
Parasites.
across all sectors of our lives at this point. It is it is in the open now. It is no longer, as they've coined us, conspiracy theory. No, these are facts that are being presented. And now, because of the age of information and having access,
Oh yeah, they don't
and
like that.
well, no, and having to, well, that's why now you have the paywalls, right? They had to find some other barriers to put up, and unfortunately, it's very few people like the two of you who are willing to swim through the swamp and to fight through the barbed wire and to cross every single barrier. I mean, if you think of it as a battlefield, they're just throwing, I mean, minefield after minefield that they put out there, assuming that nobody's going to make it through, and the few that do can be silenced. And now we're coming to the point where that's exactly what they're trying to do to you in any way imaginable. It's absolutely disgusting what is being perpetrated against you, Tyler, now in a criminal fashion.
I'm just so appreciative for the output of public support, starting to gain some traction. And thanks for you and just us having our big followings, and the careers that we've been in, because not everybody has that,
And I think that speaks to something larger. That is the reason we have this network now. That is the reason that I have spent 25 years building a platform, is so we can speak up for the ones who are being silenced. And maybe I didn't realize that before we spoke the first time, but seeing the traction that it got, seeing what we, even when we had Shad Sullivan on our program, another big property rights and rancher, he brought and came on and talked about the Maud family. And lo and behold, 3 weeks later, the Maud family are getting, I don't want to say freed, but the charges have been dismissed, and because of public outcry. So
well, they should have never been brought to begin with.
Neither should yours, right? You shouldn't be dealing with this either. And only through public outcry and through educating the public on what exactly is going on and getting some of this, outrage to hit the ears of those who are in power, that we make a change. So,
and they really don't like my co-counsel here. They keep screaming, well, he's not a bar member. He's not a bar member. It's like, you guys don't even understand your own damn laws, because
I'm not a bar member.
Association.
I'm not a bar member, and I am more than in my rights to go and represent myself in court. So
no, actually, you know what? You have the right to represent or to speak on behalf of somebody else's friend and counsel. It says in the Constitution, there's no Constitution that says that bar members have the right to monopolize. Converting a right into a privilege is a crime in itself. Now, you got to remember, bar members don't necessarily know who they represent or promote, but under Corpus Juris Secundum 7-4, attorneys only can represent corporations, and they can only represent wards, people that are incompetent, and children. So as soon as you hire an attorney, period, you've already been bamboozled. It's legal entrapment.
Public
right.
pretenders.
So by hiring counsel, effectively, you have deemed yourself incompetent.
Exactly.
And if you can't afford one, we will appoint one for you.
Yes. Yes. It's legal.
Who's even more incompetent?
Okay. Here's another one. They called him, what was it? What was the term?
Ignorant.
Yeah. Indigent. Okay. So when you're in jail, okay, and they take you away from your money supply and they separate you from everything, they have saying, well, you're an indigent. But meanwhile, you have money, but yet they're holding you from it. So again, every single system, the way they've set things up, legalese, is legal entrapment to convert a living man into an entity so they can administrate and steal from you.
Well, when you seen them documents, they said that I was indigent. Indigent. It's a different word. It's basically kind of like incompetent. No
money.
And no money, no financial resources. It's like, well, shit, you guys got me locked up and away from my financial resources. And then you extort me a large amount of money just to get out so I could continue fighting you guys. And yeah, hell, I don't think they thought I'd even get that done.
And honestly, I know it's an open case, but Can we talk about the number and the bond? I mean, a $50,000 cash only bond on a non-murder. I mean, you didn't murder anyone. I understand the charges are, felony charges that they're trying to levy against you, but I've done some pretty heinous stuff in my life, and my bond was only ever cash or surety, where I was able to use a bail bondsman and able to do that. I had charges that were, in fact, even more severe than the ones you're facing, and I never faced something like that. So just
They're
from
trying to bury me.
exactly, and they're trying to silence you. They are trying to, and quite literally, Tyler, they may try to bury you. The same as, I mean, we're
My
not going to get
mom.
into speculation, but the signs continue to stack up, and if there are no coincidences, then a gruesome and terrifying story for any person is developing here, that these power structures will stop at nothing to protect themselves and to protect their own and to gain the things that they want, whether that be financial or property or whatever it is. They are going to stop at nothing to get that. And I think that's exactly why we have to keep showing up, not just for you, Tyler, but for everyone, and to be a beacon for others that are going through this, and to continue to push. Like, this has become my life mission, to continue to push this and to promote these real stories that are happening right now.
You seen that video I posted? They've hit me all different directions, and they wanted to say I'm a flight risk, and it's like, hell, I'm not a flight risk. I'm actually the one that's coming after you guys.
We have a bond on them, literally, that's factual, legal, and lawful for $405 million. So you think we're going to go anywhere? They're worried about $50,000. Meanwhile, their request is in the ferns, which is Federal Reserve notes. That's foreign to the United States. It's a debt note. What makes them an pauper trust? So they're insolvent. They don't have any money. So the fact that they're requiring it to be paid in a fern note or the USD, that's a debt note, it's not worth anything, whether you guys want to believe it or not. In this broadcast, it actually is true. It makes them a pauper, makes them insolvent. So they're already acting as a criminal cartel right off the beginning, forcing you to use a debt note that's enslaving every single man and woman in this country.
They I don't know if they call themselves this, but the rumor around the countryside, and I've heard it since I was little, Bad River Mafia.
So this may be generational on the side of some of these agents as well.
Yeah.
I mean, their fathers and grandfathers could have been fighting your grandfather and obviously your mother until her untimely passing last
Kind of
year.
seems like it. Kind of seems like it.
Well, you know what, boys? I don't want to keep up too much of your time today. I know you're busy. There's probably more briefs and motions to file, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But anytime that you're available, I think even having a weekly conversation where we sit down over a cup of coffee, Aaron, and we're able to get a little bit more of this info out, maybe in a little bit smaller chunks for everyone, so that we can come to understand what is really at play here, while obviously still following the saga of the Calkins family ranch. I appreciate both you guys taking some time for me today. Anything that you want to get out before we release this episode? And I promise you, we're going to try to get on next week and do the same thing here.
Thank you. Thank you, Bubba, and thank you, everybody. It's,
Yeah,
it's,
it is huge. And thank you, everybody, for taking the time to pay attention, because when you take away somebody else's rights, you eventually lose yours. And I could never imagine knowing the stuff that I'm aware of and how it actually affects everybody and not doing what we're doing. I mean, it's really bad when people understand and able to comprehend what's taking place over 3-4 generations and where we are now. I thank you, everybody.
And Tyler, I just want to speak to you personally and to tell you how proud of you I am as your friend. Watching you go through this, you're one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. You've never been anything but good to me or anyone else that I've ever seen. And to see the hell that you have endured for the last year plus, losing your mother and just what it's caused to you personally. Having to fight back tears on this podcast with us. I know the emotion, but also that support from the community around you and this growing community around the Patriot Broadcasting Project and the Scene projects as well. We're here for you, and we are really invested in this and looking to become more so invested in it because of the implications it means for not just you, but for everyone. So as your friend, Tyler, thank you for trusting me with your story. And I hope that I can do right by you and bring some resolution to your family in a positive manner.
Thank you so much, Bubba. It means the world to me.
I know it does. You don't need to say it because I know it does. And for everyone listening, these are real people. This is a real situation that could happen to anyone, and may happen to everyone. So we are bringing awareness to Tyler's story because it's important to us on a personal level, but also because it's important on a much larger and deeper level. And a big thank you to Aaron Prince, who's been giving us a hell of an education here at the Patriot Broadcasting Project, even in the short amount of time we get to spend together. So look for a lot more from us. Make sure you're following the channel, subscribing, go find Tyler. Can you guys send me the scribed link, and maybe we can post that in the show notes here as well if you'd like to get some of that information out. So keep your eyes in the show notes for that link if you want to, take all these documents and plug them into ChatGPT and have it tell you what the heck is actually going on. It's a lot to digest, and that's why we're going to do our best to break it up into a little bit smaller chunks for you guys to educate not only on the situation as it's evolving, but also your rights as a living man. And there's a lot more to come. You guys stay tuned, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.